Thanks for joining me today for Think Big with Michael Zellner. Joining me today for my guest for episode 156 is Lizzy Savetsky. Lizzy was born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas. She was Miss Teen Duncanville and competed in Miss Teen Texas in 2002 and finished third runner-up. She got her bachelor's degree from New York University and then her master's degree in reading, writing, and literacy at the University of Pennsylvania. She founded the Real Love, Real Loss movement to destigmatize pregnancy loss for Jewish women globally. And she also started a very successful social media campaign that raised $57,000 for a Torah for the Israeli army in memory of lost pregnancies. She's a very outspoken activist for Israel and the Jewish people. And over the last 7+ months since October 7th, she's appeared on all over social media. And I've seen her numerous times all over Fox News channels to get the truth out about what happened that fateful day and what's going on right now in America on college campuses and elsewhere too. Lizzy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. What an intro. My gosh, you really went all the way back there. That was a deep dive.
My pleasure. But before we get started talking today, I would like to thank our two sponsors for the show, Buckley's Grill and also Sleepy's Masonry. Buckley's Grill is a hidden gem for those seeking a fantastic dining experience in Memphis. It's located on Poplar Avenue at the State. They've been around for about 30 years. They're co-owned by two local Memphians, Jeff Furinelli and Ken Dick. From the moment you walk in the door to the time you get seated, your wait staff, everybody in there is super friendly. They have the most amazing steaks and fillets and the best cream spinach I've ever had in my life. So if you're looking for a great experience, Buckley's is the place to go. Sleepy's Masonry services the entire Memphis and Mid-South area, including West Tennessee, North Mississippi, and Eastern Arkansas. They're a member of the Better Business Bureau of the Mid-South, West Tennessee Home Builders Association, and also the Mason Contractors Association of America. Whether you need brickwork, stone, cinder block, or concrete, Sleepy Z's can take care of all your needs, from replacing just one brick all the way up to bricking or putting stonework on your entire home and more. Sleepy Z's Masonry, where you rest easy while we're on the job. You know, Lizzy, in almost the 2 years I've been doing my podcast, I've stayed away from politics for the most part, you know, especially discussing certain people or candidates. But this isn't going to, be like a full-fledged, political podcast. But when it comes to Israel and anti-Semitism, this American Jew cannot, and will not stay quiet anymore. After following you on Instagram and where you have close to 400,000 followers, it's amazing. And they count on you for speaking out, against this craziness going on in America and Israel and all over the world. And then, also seeing you on television. And I remember the first interview I saw was right after you got back from Israel with Dana Perino on the Fox News channel. I knew you were the perfect person to talk about what you experienced and your family experienced on October 7th, since you guys were in Israel. What happened with you and your husband, Ira, your three children, Stella, Juliet, and Ali, were all in Israel at the time. I know you've shared the story, several times on social media about what happened that day when you were there. But for those who have not heard it yet, if you would, please share with the audience what you and your family experienced.
Sure. So Israel is a huge part of our lives. I lived there for a little bit here and there, and it's, my kids are being raised knowing that it's really a central focus for our family, for the Jewish people, and, in their hearts. So we actually went to Israel for the holiday of Sukkot. It was going to be my son's third birthday, and we were doing his first haircut. We had waited until he turned 3. It's a Jewish custom. We were doing it in Jerusalem, overlooking the Kotel. So we basically went to Israel for the world's most expensive haircut. It was an amazing week and a half leading up to October 7th. My parents were there, just seeing Israel through my children's eyes, falling in love with it all over again, doing things I hadn't done in years, like going to the Dead Sea, riding camels, all the things you don't normally do once you've been to Israel once or twice. And so I had never been so in love with Israel as I was on October 7th. My heart was bursting. And it was my favorite holiday, which is Simchas Torah, which is the day where we celebrate the finishing of the Torah, starting over again. It was Saturday morning. My husband had gone down to the synagogue in our hotel in Jerusalem with my middle daughter, my 9-year-old Juliet. And I was up in the hotel room just getting ready, taking my time with my older daughter and my son. And my daughter went out into the hallway. She came back in to the room and she said, "Mommy, I think there's a fire drill. I'm hearing sirens." And I knew it wasn't good, because I know in Israel there are no drills. When we hear sirens, it's game time. So it wasn't more than a few seconds after she said that the hotel loudspeaker went off, and they said, "The red alert sirens are going off. Everyone please evacuate to the bomb shelter immediately." And it was very surreal. I mean, I could feel it in my body the same way I felt in that moment, just like, oh my gosh, just complete helplessness, trying to just stay in my mom role and not panic. And my daughter grabbed my 3-year-old son and sprinted down 8 flights of stairs barefoot. I was putting on my shoes. She said, "Mommy, you don't have time to put on your shoes. What are you doing?" But I was trying to just stay calm, and putting on my shoes for me felt like a normal human thing to do. Of course, we got into the stairwell and it was just sheer panic. There was a woman standing behind me in a towel. She had been in the shower when the speaker went off. Everyone was it was chaos. And I couldn't find my husband and my daughter. And we were in and out of the bomb shelter all day. I did finally reconnect with my husband and my daughter, and we started to get bits and pieces of information about what was happening. We were all in shock. I had lived in Israel, like I mentioned before, but I had never been in a bomb shelter. And then just to hear, I remember hearing that there was a terrorist infiltration on land, sea, and air, and just trying to understand what that meant. And then, of course, later in the day, seeing the pictures of the Nova Music Festival and these people being taken hostage, and like the video footage that Hamas had taken themselves. And, we just couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe that we were there. And I knew that I had a big job to do as somebody that was in Israel on October 7th. And of course, as somebody who had devoted my life for the past several years to fighting for Israel and the Jewish people. I knew I wasn't going to have a lot of time to get emotional, and that I had to hit the ground running with the work. And I've been going nonstop ever since.
How quickly were you guys able to get out of Israel and get back to America?
We were fortunate. My husband had booked us on El Al, which was the only airline that was flying out of Israel. And most people that we were with in our hotel had to fly, to 3 different countries to get back home, and took them days. So we were able to get back on October 9th that morning. And it was wild, on El Al, the airline. Every single seat, including the seats meant for the flight attendants, those seats that fold into the walls, was taken by passengers. And I was talking to the flight attendants. Israelis in general are not typically a culture of manners. And especially the El Al flight attendants, you almost feel like you work for them. But it was just a completely different feeling coming home than it was going there. Everyone was just so vulnerable, and everyone's emotions were just right here. And I was hugging the flight attendants and crying with them. They were telling me all about how their boyfriends, their husbands had gone to the army. They weren't able to get in touch with them. They didn't know when they were see them or hear from them again. I actually filmed a video because I just wanted to remember all of the feelings in that moment. And I really felt like I was living through history, even on this airplane.
Absolutely. I have family that live in Israel, and they have for a very long time. They love it there. I know other people that have moved to Israel and love living there too. Another friend of mine has a niece who moved to Israel and joined the IDF at 18 and was out on October 7th when it happened. She's in logistics. She's now 25, and a few days afterwards, she contacted her commander and said, "Hey, do you guys need me back?" And they said, yes, we do. So she re-enlisted. And in your opinion, what is it about the citizens of Israel and the people that live there that makes them so passionate about their homeland and protecting it that maybe is different from other countries?
I think it's an amazing question, and it's so hard for people to understand unless you've been there and experienced it. But I really, this is not a piece of land. This is not just a country. This is a piece of us. And for the Jewish people, this has been our homeland for 3,000 years. And it's an inexplicable feeling. Even if you're not religiously observant, it's a feeling of connection and just we are inextricably linked to this land. I don't know that many 18-year-old Americans who would drop everything and enlist in the army, but in Israel, this is a way of life. They understand that their obligation as an Israeli, as a Jewish person living in Israel, as a non-Jewish person living in Israel, is to protect and defend their country, this country that has been under attack since even before its official founding, but ever since the day it was founded. So, it's a very emotional connection that I think other people don't necessarily have to their country, wherever they were born.
What were the key experiences or individuals that influenced your decision to become an activist for Israel, and how did your upbringing or your education, shape your perspectives on social issues in Israel and the Middle East?
So I was born in Fort Worth, Texas, and as you can imagine, there's not a very big Jewish community there at all. I was not raised observant. I never grew up going to Israel. The first time I went to Israel was on Birthright when I was 18. It's a free trip to Israel for any Jewish person between the ages of, at the time I went, it was 18 and 26. I don't know if it's changed. I knew Israel was important, and I knew that being Jewish was a central part of my family, but I didn't know anything, other than just this is who we are. And so in a weird way, it kind of made me more passionate. Being one of the only Jews in my class, I was one of 2 Jews in my class, K through 12. And I felt like an ambassador for the Jewish people in a way. Like I was the one that they looked to with all their questions and explanations. So it kind of forced me to educate myself when I was growing up in a way I don't necessarily know if I would have if I had grown up around a bunch of Jews. I never took my Judaism for granted. It was something that always felt really important and made me feel special. But I had this longing to learn more. So when I turned 18 and between high school and college, I went on this trip to Israel on Birthright, and I just fell in love. And it really was a pivotal moment in my life. I never looked at my Jewish identity the same again, because it was this just profound connection and passion was just awakened within me, and this sense of familiarity and belonging and knowing something that I had never seen was, and so I'm sure anyone who's gone to Israel for the first time can understand that feeling. And then, I decided to become more observant when I was in college. And for me, my passion for Israel is very connected to my Jewish identity. The two for me go hand in hand. I am passionate about Israel because I'm passionate about being a Jewish person, and this is my homeland. And so really, I feel like as I became more observant and more connected to my Jewish identity, I also became more passionate about Israel, which I didn't even know was possible because I had already felt so passionate. And really, the reason that I decided to step up, I was raised in a family that was always very community minded. Never relied on other people to step up. It was, if there was something that needed to be done, we do it. And, I guess never had to apply it to defending my Jewishness, to defending my passion for Israel. And suddenly, and really it was 2021 was the first time that I really felt an overwhelming need to step up. And so, it was, I felt like I had been blessed with this platform. I had a pretty big following on Instagram, close to 200,000 followers at the time. And Israel was being pummeled in the media and on social media when there was this conflict in Gaza. The way it works is Israel is attacked, Israel retaliates to defend itself, and then the world loses its mind and demonizes Israel.
Right.
So I started to notice this pattern, and I just didn't see anyone in my position on social media really defending Israel. And I was starting to see the trickle effect of anti-Semitism growing, even in my own community. And, at the time we were living in Dallas, and there was this situation in a synagogue in Colleyville, about 20 minutes from where I was living, where there was terrorists came in and was holding all these people hostage. Thank God everyone made it out okay. But, I was really starting to see the repercussions in real time of what all this demonization of Israel was doing. And it really clicked for me, like, oh, when people demonize Israel, then people start to demonize Jews. And I was seeing it just so clearly. So, I just decided to devote my life and my platform to it simply because I felt like it was a life or death situation for us. And how could I not?
Absolutely. You said, quote, "I could not in a million years have imagined that this would be my life path. If somebody would have told me when I was a 15-year-old in the Miss Teen Texas pageant that I'd be devoting my life to standing up for Israel and the Jewish people, I would have told them that they were crazy," unquote. Hate for the Jewish people and anti-Semitism obviously started well before October 7th. So even before this happened, what were some of the most significant challenges that you faced in your activism work for Israel? Because I know that you also faced some anti-Semitism when you were on The Real Housewives of New York, I believe.
Yeah. For me, anti-Semitism was something I had only really experienced in more implicit forms. Never somebody telling me that they wanted to kill me because I was Jewish, just more like my friends growing up telling me that, I was going to burn in hell if I didn't accept Jesus, which they didn't mean, that was what they really believed.
Sure.
And they loved me. So I don't even hold any resentment towards them at all. I may have at the time, but now I believe they really loved me and that they just didn't know better. It wasn't until like the past 2.5 years that I started to get these death threats on a regular basis, crazy messages, people calling my husband's office off the hook. We had thousands of calls.
Oh my God.
We've had to file so many police reports, so many FBI reports about all of the threats and hate that we receive. I think that what really woke me up was when my husband got a physical letter in the mail with a death threat and to his office. And that, I was like, somebody actually took the time to write this letter, to mail it, and how much hate can you have to do that? And they hate us simply because we're Jewish, simply because we were born, because we exist. And you heard about these things. We study the Holocaust. We talk about all the different moments of anti-Semitism throughout history, the Spanish Inquisition, but we don't believe it until it's actually happening. And I think it woke me up, and I think people, accuse me of being an alarmist, especially before October 7th. People would always accuse me of being an alarmist for calling out anti-Semitism. And so many people have come to me since October 7th, and they're like, you were right, I didn't want to believe you. But it's very much alive and raging and terrifying.
I posted this on social media a few days ago. I said, quote, "You can't speak rationally to irrational people. You can't speak logically to illogical people. And you definitely can't speak the actual truth and historical facts to indoctrinated and brainwashed people or paid violent agitators, because they'll only scream their truth at you and never listen to you ever," unquote. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know you've been all over college campuses dealing with this.
You're exactly right. And it's that's exactly on target. I tell people all the time, don't waste your energy, because, when we are a people that care deeply about the truth, and we're up against a propaganda machine that will say and do anything to promote their hateful agenda and to demonize us. So the truth doesn't matter to them. Right. So, when you're up against that, you're never going to win if it's a numbers game, but you will win in the sense that the truth is the truth, no matter how many people believe it. It's actually a quote from Maimonides, one of the greatest Torah scholars of all time, that just because nobody believes the truth doesn't make it any less true. And just because everyone believes the truth doesn't make it any more true. So, I think knowing the truth ourselves is a source of comfort, and just not wasting our energy trying to scream to people who don't care to hear it. They would rather just stay blind to it. So I really have used my energy towards trying to empower my own people to be strong, proud Jews, and to educate whoever wants to be educated.
Not only, it's anti-Semitism, it's being taught on college campuses for freshmen when they get to campus, but some of these radical professors are also teaching hatred towards Israel and America, the free country that they get to live and teach. And that Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Iranian government and other terrorist organizations in the Middle East, that they're the victims of the Zionist regime. In September 2023, you went to your alma mater to protest Palestine Rights Literature Festival that was there. It had 120 speakers, of which you said, quote, 2/3 of which had previously made frightening anti-Semitic and anti-Israel comments. I went to Penn to talk to the students and make a fuss about how dangerous this is, but no one in power would listen, unquote. We know that probably half of these people aren't even students on campuses now, but the other half are. And what do you think in many cases why has it been so easy for them to get the students to buy into these lies and propaganda about America, Israel, and that the terrorists are the good guys?
We are living in a society that this didn't happen overnight. This has been really something that they've been working at for a long time. Different programming like DEI, for example, right. Where there is this narrative that has been promoted all across our universities that's, infiltrated now high schools and middle schools, of the oppressed versus the oppressor. And it's this very black and white situation where the oppressed person should do and can do whatever they need to do to their oppressor in order to achieve their freedom. And they've made it just very simple. And, in this situation, Israel is looked at as the oppressor and the Palestinian people are looked at as the oppressed. There is never any mention of Hamas or the terror that has factored into this, that has caused all of this. It's just Israel bad, Palestinians good. And any bad things Palestinians do, they should do because they are oppressed. And I think it's been very easy for the college-age kids, particularly, to buy into it because, you know, they're good-hearted people. They are humanitarians. They want to be humanitarians. They want to believe that they are promoting human rights and values and ethics. And they feel like this is a ticket to all of that. It's like the social currency these days is how moral and ethical and humane are you? And they've all just bought into this lie. And they don't care about the truth because, you know, there are all these people in positions of authority that are telling them that this is the gospel. And they've never bothered to look further into it because this is really an abuse of power. You know, if your university, your Ivy League university is inviting all of these anti-Semitic speakers onto your campus, wouldn't you trust that they have your education and your best interest at heart? I mean, why would you think that they would be trying to indoctrinate you or radicalize you? You want to believe that you're smarter than that you're not capable of being brainwashed. Right. But unfortunately, that's exactly what we're seeing. A bunch of sheep and robots.
Right. And I think most of these kids are not even being taught about the Holocaust in school anymore. Or if they don't believe it, you know. And I remember hearing Robert Clary, who played LeBeau on Hogan's Heroes, and he just passed away in the last year. He was the last remaining person from that show. Speak about he was a little kid and his family in the Holocaust, and I think I was 18 years old when I heard him speak, and just crying, and just listening to them talk about it. And then you watch the video of what happened on October 7th. And a lot of people that are out there protesting, they've seen it. And they say, oh, that's not real, or it's AI, and they just don't want, they didn't do this.
Or they say that we deserved it because
right.
We're the oppressors.
Right. Yeah. It's just
they cheer it on.
Right. A lack of empathy.
Yeah. And, you know, the thing about the Holocaust education, I've seen it be exploited now. And, you know, hijacking words like genocide, which was a word that was coined in 1944 about the genocide of the Jewish people during World War II. You know, it's calling Israel, the IDF, Nazis.
Right.
You know, it's like, wait a minute. No, that's what was done to us. And now you're accusing us of doing it. It's just another form of anti-Semitism, and it just kills me to see the Holocaust be hijacked and exploited to push this anti-Semitic agenda. It's like, what planet are we on?
Right. It's like we live in a bizarro world.
Yeah.
You know, we now have verified information that all the chaos on college campuses, as you said, it's been going on and planned and prepped for, you know, at least several months. There's a lot of Soros and Rockefeller money that have gone into this because, you know, you look at all the tents all across these campuses, they're almost all the same, super expensive that probably many of these people probably could not afford, you know, behind paying these agitators too. You know, I've seen several political commentators that say some of the same agitators they're seeing now, they saw in the summer of 2020, all across the campuses and doing the same thing back then, riling things up and trying to divide us even more. There also was just a blaming of Israel just a few days after October 7th, like you said, before they even responded to the attacks and did anything to Hamas. What does this tell us about what's going on?
You know, I think that this is absolutely a fringe group for the most part. And of course, like anything, it's gained a lot of mainstream attention, and there have been people that have just jumped on board. But I think there's just a lot of people out there that just want to feel a part of something. And so they've just grasped onto this because it makes them feel like they're useful. And, you know, what's the meaning of life anyway? I think we just all want to feel like we have purpose. And this has given them some sense of purpose, even though they're not accomplishing anything other than just wreaking havoc. But yeah, I mean, these are just people that are professional agitators. And they're, we have seen the documents that have been circulating around these campuses that are coming from these extremist Islamic regimes about how to set up an encampment, how to break through a gate, break through a window, explaining to students why it's important for them to partner and take help from outsiders and bring them onto campus. But I think that the most insane thing is like that the campuses have just opened their arms to this. They've just allowed all of these members of terror organizations to come. One of them screamed to my husband and I at Columbia, "We are Hamas."
Right.
They're allowing these people onto their campuses to camp out, to just live there on the quad, and they're not allowing the Jewish students onto campus or the Jewish professors onto campus, telling them that they can't walk through their own quad. It's just shocking. And it's, you have to wonder, who are they afraid of? Are they afraid of the mob? Or are they getting money from the same people who are buying these tents?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, you saw even Jerry Seinfeld got, yelled at, when he was speaking at the Duke graduation the other day, people walking out. I was thinking to myself, none of you guys were even alive when Seinfeld was on. It has nothing. It had to do with the fact that he was Jewish, because he hasn't
exactly.
And then I saw a great thing about North Carolina. Just said University of North Carolina said we're getting rid of all our DEI stuff, and we're going to spend that money and put it into police. Which, I said, that's a great thing, because you're not hearing that. These other campuses, just like you said, they're kowtowing down to these protesters and agitators and letting them do whatever they want to do.
It's insane. Why even have policies if you don't enforce them? What's the point? I guess it's like in New York City, you get arrested, you go to jail, you get out on bail reform. Like when there's no consequences, why would it ever deter you from doing whatever you want to do?
Right. Yeah,
we're in a lawless society.
Absolutely. It's even, all the Soros-backed DAs all across the country. We have one here in Memphis. I know that, Gascon out in LA, and they're all over the country. They're letting them get away with whatever they want. And as long as there's no consequences, they're just going to continue to keep doing what they're doing.
Of course.
The squad in Congress, very outspoken, screaming, "Free Palestine!" They're inciting violence. Doing their little press conference, telling all the crazies, keep doing what you're doing. Over the last week, we have found out that the Biden administration has flip-flopped all over the place. And it's withholding military weapons to Israel after Biden said in a 2019 interview on CBS that doing what he is doing now is something he would never, ever do. And you recently said, quote, "Who is responsible for Biden's decision to withhold critical military aid to Israel? Meet John Fine and Mayor Bitar," unquote. Tell us just a little bit about them, please.
So, we know that President Biden is obviously getting a lot of pressure from people inside of his administration to make these decisions. I mean, he had come out, he's, called himself a Zionist. He said that his commitment to the security of Israel was ironclad. And so obviously we knew that he was getting some inside pressure. People didn't like his stance. So John Feiner is an anti-Zionist Jew. He is in a position of pretty heavy-duty power with President in advising President Biden on issues of national security. And he's very outspoken about being an anti-Zionist. He right after October 7th, when America jumped to support Israel, he called it a misstep. He actually called it a misstep. And he's Jewish, he's a self-hating Jew. And then Maher Bitar is really scary situation that this guy has so much power in this administration. His job before he was at the White House was he was the head of SJP at Georgetown University. And SJP, as we know, is I wouldn't call it anti-Israel. I'd call it straight up anti-Semitic organization.
Yep.
They've been banned from a lot of campuses, for rightfully so, even though they will still come on and do activities on campus. And of course, like we spoke about before, there's no consequences. And he, there's pictures of him in the Georgetown yearbook wearing the keffiyeh. And before he was working for SJP, he was working for UNRWA, which, I'm sorry to say, but I'm just going to be honest, UNRWA is Hamas, and yes. Hamas is UNRWA. Yeah. So, this is who has President Biden's ear, and this is who he's listening to. And I've heard a lot of different things that, he's going to take this back. He's going to reverse what he said about withholding the critical military aid. But I think for a lot of Jews in America, we do feel abandoned, and we feel like all this wishy-washy lack of commitment. We want to see our president take a strong stand both against anti-Semitism in this country with what's happening on our campuses and in our streets, and also as an ally to Israel. Because let's face it, as much as Israel does need America, America also needs Israel, and Israel is truly on the front lines of this battle for the entire Western world. So they should be, doing whatever Israel needs to help them, because this is everyone's war.
And I've had so many people that I've talked to that I know are Democrats that are, Jewish, that are not voting they're not going to vote for Biden because of this one event here. And they say, as much as I don't like Donald Trump personally, I'm voting for Donald Trump because he's much stronger on Israel. He had the peace accords over there, moved the from embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And they started thinking back and say, we were much better off 4 years ago than we are now in so many different areas with them. And then I've heard people, I've had so many people say the same thing to me. And like you, I try not to be political. I really never talked about politics until October 7th. And I almost feel forced in a way to make all these comments on it as an Israel activist. It's impossible to stay out of the political sphere. And, as much as I really hate talking about it, I don't really think you ever change people's minds, but sure, it is what it is. It is. And, I usually try not to defend political people, but when I've heard people call Donald Trump anti-Semitic, and I said, well, all right, let's talk about that for a second. His daughter, Ivanka, converted to Orthodox Judaism. Yeah. I said, her kids are Jewish, raised Jewish, married to a Jew. I said, I'm a conservative Jew. I go, she knows more about Judaism than I do because of what you have to go through to convert to Orthodox. I said, so if he was anti-Semitic, I'm sure he would have told her, no, you're not marrying him, you're not doing that, and not made her welcome.
I mean, he has Orthodox Jewish grandchildren who go to an Orthodox Jewish day school. For me, I think he's made some really erroneous moves, like with the whole Kanye at Mar-a-Lago, whatever. Sure. But overall, I think he loves the Jewish people. I do. I believe that.
And a lot of those people that talk bad about him loved him before he ran for president too. So it's fun to help.
Listen, it's politics is dirty.
Yes, it is. A suspended anti-Semitic protester who attends Arizona State University said this the other day, quote, "I'm a little disappointed. I'm being restricted from a lot of things right now that I didn't expect to be standing up for something that I believe in," unquote. So many of these young adults today who have the attitude they can do whatever they want to do, get away with it like we talked about, because it seems probably for most of their lives they have gotten away with it, where we grew up being afraid of our teachers. Now the teachers are afraid of the students. They all grew up in the social media world. What do you feel that has done to warp their brains so badly? Because some of these crazy people, they follow every day on TikTok or Instagram and believe that their word is the gospel, and they think everything is factual.
I think there are so many factors at play here. I mean, there's the just overwhelming sense of entitlement that this generation has. Yes. They've been told that they can do and be and anything they want. And it's not true. You can't do and be anything you want. Sorry.
Right.
And they, you know, they have not suffered any real consequences for their actions. So they've been able to just get away with everything that they've ever wanted to do. And yeah, of course, social media also has been a hugely toxic force in all of this. It's unfortunately for me, it's a necessary evil because I feel like I have to be on it, but it's definitely created a false reality where people are looking at these influencers or these content creators as their heroes, as their gurus, and it's really dangerous. You know, it's just, I don't know. I'm definitely, I think that there needs to be a change that happens. I was hoping that my kids wouldn't want to be on social media because I'm on it, and I thought maybe they would think it wasn't cool because mom's on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't, it's hard for me to even think about our next generation of leaders. This is scary. You know, this is who we've raised in America.
Sense of entitlement, actions don't have any consequences at all, no responsibility for their actions. All they've known is a social media world their whole lives. And I think that, unfortunately, it's turned a ton of people into complete narcissists.
And, you know, before, like, the social media era, if you wanted to be loved and accepted and admired, you had to actually do something noteworthy. Yeah. Right. And I feel like social media has just changed that whole landscape. It's like you actually don't have to work hard or be good or accomplished in anything. You could just have a lot of followers, and all of a sudden you have clout and people will look up to you and listen to you. And it's like, wait a second, who are we worshiping here?
Right. I mean, even when Elon Musk bought, Twitter, which is now X, a lot of those people at Twitter only were going in a couple of days a week and barely working. And I saw a video of one, I just got my cafe latte and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then he takes over, and because the guy, whether you agree with him or not on stuff, strong work ethic, he's like, no, you're going to have to come to work 5 days a week. This is what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, this is called a job.
Yeah. And they don't, and so many people quit or got fired, whining. They don't want to do it. And, we know why these kids are, for the most part, wearing these masks and things, because they're hoping that nothing happens to them and, they won't be known. I saw one yesterday tear their diploma when they got their diploma on the stage. I'm like thinking, crazy.
So entitled. Like, that is like the definition of privilege. Like, think about how many people out there would love to have a college diploma.
Right.
It's so disgusting.
And they can't afford
the irony, they're like fighting for the oppressed. These are the most privileged, entitled group of kids. It's so gross. And it makes me nauseous.
Every one of those schools probably are between 50 to 100,000 a year.
Oh, exactly. The girl at Columbia who was holding up the sign that said Al-Qassam, your next victims, with an arrow pointing to Jewish students behind her, she grew up in like a $4 million house in Atlanta. It's like, and she's wearing the keffiyeh. It's just.
Yeah. Ask these kids if they know where Israel or Gaza is on a map.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you most of them have no idea.
Yeah.
The Jerusalem Post the other day had an article that said, quote, UN seemingly halves estimate of Gazan women, children killed, unquote. You spoke about this on Instagram, how from the UN reports from May 6th to May 8th, that somehow mysteriously the numbers have changed dramatically. Is this because the UN is just taking the word of Hamas on the numbers, or just the fact that big majority of them, they just, from the UN, they hate Israel?
It's both. They take Hamas's word because they hate Israel. But what the problem with this is, both the May 6th and May 8th numbers were from Hamas sources. So we still really have no idea what the actual number is. There has been no proper investigation but even though we know that, I believe over 11,000 of the death certificates that Hamas had filled out were incomplete, didn't have names, ID numbers, birth dates. There were thousands that had that were born on January 1st. So we know there's a lot of things not adding up. But the problem is when the UN is it's not taken seriously by me or by a lot of people that know the truth, but it is taken seriously by much of the world. And even President Biden in his State of the Union quoted this number because, well, if the UN says it must be true, right. 35,000 people. But the reality is, even if you go through the numbers and you subtract, let's say, so we know that Israel has killed between 12 and 13,000 Hamas combatants. We know that on October 7th, they killed 1,000. So that's between 13 and 14,000 of that, whatever that number is, whatever that 30 plus thousand number is they're saying, are Hamas terrorists. So we're really looking at the lowest ratio of urban warfare in modern history.
Right.
I mean, there is no lower ratio of civilian to combatants in any urban warfare in the history of modern war. So I don't really know what they want from us. People accusing us of genocide. It's just baffling. It's a joke.
It is a joke. And no other army that I know of, except the IDF, will drop pamphlets in areas that they're about to, go into, make phone calls, text, and let them know beforehand so they can get out of there. No one else does it. And you have all these people that have died in Russia and Ukraine and Afghanistan and all over the world, and you never have any of the people here complaining about that or standing up for that.
Yeah, where are the encampments for Sudan and Iran and,
the millions killed.
Because you know why. I mean...
Yeah, and China, the millions of Muslims they killed. Nope. We have so much money invested in China, and China and us, nope, not going to go and protest against them. But only the Jews.
It doesn't take much digging to see that these people are all pawns.
Yes.
In a much larger anti-Semitic game.
Absolutely.
Of takedown.
You said, quote, "A few years ago, I realized I no longer looked up to the people I glorified most of my life. I decided it was time for new heroes. Barry Weiss rose to the top of my list. She truly paved the way for how so many of us fought anti-Semitism with her brave, brilliant, unapologetic journalism that made me feel seen and heard. Barry and I have so much overlap in our worlds, but tonight I finally got to meet her in person for the first time and thank her for existing. She is a treasure," unquote. Tell us a little bit about that meeting and what it meant to you.
Yeah, so a few years ago, I really started to question the people that I looked up to. It was really hard for me, when somebody that you really look up to and respect that you have on a pedestal lets you down in such a major way, really the core of who you are. It's devastating. But, on the flip side of that, I've really found new people that I look up to that have really paved the way for me and have become my role models. And I'm fortunate enough that, I've gotten to get to know them and become friends with them. And Barry and I have the same speaking agent, and we've kind of circled each other over the past couple of years, but I was just dying to meet her and I never had the chance. And last night, her wife had a book party. She had just written a book, Nellie Bowles, and so I went because I said I was excited to get the book from Nellie, but I really wanted to meet Barry just because she, somebody has to be brave enough to break the mold, right, and to really just forge ahead into this uncharted territory, and that's what Barry did, and she did it so gracefully and elegantly and eloquently and just in a way that I really try to model my own work after, even though the work we do is so different. Barry really doesn't have much of a social media presence beyond Twitter. I just I really would like to be as unapologetic and courageous and still maintain my grace and charm in the way she does. And it's important to have heroes, I think, and role models in this world. I believe that we need to have people to look up to, and I'm glad I found someone like her. And I have others too, but she's been amazing.
Yeah, and she went out on her own, after I believe she was at the New York Times for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah,
and she finally left. They tried to cancel her so many times, and she was done putting up with it.
Yeah, and big part of it is because she was asked by Elon Musk, to cover the Twitter stuff, and all she did was just cover what was factually coming out there, and they went after her for it.
Yep. And exactly. I think she showed me, and I thought about this actually, like when I was going through the whole Real Housewives situation, that that self-respect comes first.
Yes.
And you have to put your own morals and integrity before this big brand that, everyone, this shiny, beautiful brand that everyone kisses your tuchus for. She put herself first, and I think it really paid off in spades.
Right. Absolutely. And I love following her and watching her work now. And I really didn't know of her before Elon Musk, and all that came out. So I'm glad that they came out, because she's an amazing voice for us.
Yeah, she's awesome.
I have so much more that I want to talk to you about, Lizzy, and I know we're never going to get it all in today. Would you please come back sometime in the next few weeks and do part 2 with me?
Sure, I would love to.
I know my audience.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
Love to hear it. Once again, how can people find you on social media?
Follow me on Instagram. That is where I am every single day except for Shabbat. At Lizzy, Lizzy, Savetsky, Savettsky. I'll see you there.
And, you're such a bright light during an extremely dark time for us. And I know I speak for a lot of Jews, but not just for Jews, but for Americans in general. Thank you for using your voice to stand up for what is right and getting the truth out there in a world full of lies and propaganda right now. And you're passionate and sincere. It shows. It comes out on your Instagram page. It comes out when I've seen you on interviews on the Fox News channels. I know your time is very valuable, so I appreciate you coming on today.
Of course.
And it's a great voice to have, and just keep going out there and kicking butt and doing what you're doing.
Thank you. And thank you for your coverage of this. It's so important.
Thank you. And we'll see you very soon.